Good evening, viewers. Today we have the renowned advocate, MR Venkatesh, who is a senior partner at Agastya Legal and is based in New Delhi, practicing criminal laws, economic offences, and serious financial frauds. He's an acknowledged expert in the field of anti-money laundering laws, anti-black money laws, direct taxes, and related regulations. Welcome to our show, MR.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening. Imar, looks like every Tom, Dick, and Harry are interested in what's happening in India. To be more specific, it's the women in the Indian farmers' agitation, right from international pop star Rihanna, Pakistani peace lover Malala, ex-porn star Mia Khalifa, and Swedish climate activist and Nobel Prize awardee Greta have all extended their support to the ongoing farmers' protest in India. They all say they stand in solidarity with the farmers in India. And if that's not enough, the niece of US Vice President Kamala Harris, which is Meena, has also backed the farmers' protest and tweeted, "It's no coincidence that the world's oldest democracy was attacked not even a month ago. And as we speak, the most populous democracy is under assault. This is related. We all should be outraged by India's internet shutdowns and paramilitary violence against farmer protesters. We vote for our leaders, MR, we vote for our leaders, and they're perfectly capable of taking care of issues that belong to India. We don't need advice from others, support or interference, especially from celebrities who have no idea what they're talking about." And not only on top of this, MR, we also have a lot of journalists who concoct fake stories like Rajdeep Sardesai of India Today, who was suspended for 2 weeks. Why is there such a large faction standing with the farmers when we in fact know that they are not farmers?
Except the name farmers, I don't think so anything can be attributed remotely as farming to this motley crowd that is in the outskirts of Delhi. They are rioters, they are Khalistanis, they are thugs, they are Lutyens, Break India forces. They have, you have all this Molotov cocktail of all break up India forces which have assembled here.
Yeah.
So for the last 6-7 years, they have been out of power.
Yeah.
And they had the veto on almost every damn thing that India used to decide. And Manmohan Singh government pampered them to that extent. They virtually had, you could get an okay from the parliament, but till you get an okay from these lumpen elements, nothing was possible in India.
Yeah.
So, and being out of power for 6-7 years, they see that there is a vulnerability in this government, and probably this government also in retrospect did not do its homework fully well. And I would even suggest there was probably an intelligence failure, or what I call it, not the physical intelligence, but the intelligence to gather what could be the proper repercussions in terms of repercussions, in terms of after effects. And Akali Dal, being a Punjab-based party, was in competitive politics with Congress and had to take the plunge with the so-called farmers of Punjab. So these are all bound to happen. So probably the government underestimated the whole sort of outburst. And in this, you have, for example, Yogendra Yadav, who can't probably distinguish between Kharif crop and Rabi crop, Turad Dal and Urad Dal, suddenly jumped into the whole damn thing, and he has become a champion of the farmers. And I am unable to see that why should all this so-called Tukde gang, or your leftists and your urban Naxals and the usual suspects, the JNU forces, all of them should jump into this. But having said that, I would also say it's the duty of the government first to ensure law and order. Two, if there is a genuine problem of the farmers, and I come from Tamil Nadu, and I can tell you my PhD was on this MSP issue only, and I can tell you with some amount of understanding of the subject that farmers say in Gujarat, in Rajasthan, or probably deep down south in Karnataka or in Tamil Nadu, are not bothered so much about MSP.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a huge amount of farming community which is not bothered about the MSP. This evening we had a budget discussion in the Tamil Chamber of Commerce, where the former Revenue Secretary MR Sivaraman, no relation to MR Venkatesh, did speak on the subject, and he did make a point that 60 to 70% of the entire procurement of paddy and wheat comes from the two states of Punjab and Haryana.
Yeah.
So anything which is going to disturb status quo is going to create some sort of doubts and worry in the minds of those farmers. So it is the duty. I concede this point repeatedly, that it is the duty of the BJP and the ruling party, the government of the, to assuage the feeling of the farmers and to ensure that the farmers are not bullied, or they don't walk into a situation where they feel that it is some sort of a lose-lose situation for them. So they have to be assuaged, their concerns have to be addressed. This is where I think the BJP, which is so eloquent otherwise, BJP which has enormous amount of spokesperson, various types of people, are not communicating to the farmers. This is very ridiculous for a government not to have twin track diplomacy with the farmers. I am not seeing that happening, and this is where I think not finishing people like Yogendra Yadav, not finishing people like this Tikayats, and they have been allowed to swarm for the last 6 years, has been a tremendous failure of the Modi government. And let us not mince words here, that we have been crying hoarse several times over, that these have been rendered powerless. These have been checkmated. But given half a chance, they have been able to resuscitate themselves, and they have been come and they have thrown what is thrown back at the government, and with all vigor and all passion of the last 7 years. So not finishing off anti-India forces, keeping the pot boiling, having 9 o'clock debates, saying that this is Tukde gang, this is the Break in India forces, saying that this is urban Naxals. All of us have deluded ourselves that we have finished them. But I think this is the singular failure of Narendra Modi government, not to finish off these people lock, stock and barrel. That is why Chanakya, in the sense that Chanakya comes about and says that when one of the grass was actually pricking his leg or a foot, he says, I will destroy the entire grass in the forest which pricks my leg. That's where Chanakya's introduction with Chandragupta is, whenever we read Chanakya. He destroys them, and Chanakya says, whenever you destroy an enemy, you should see to that he is burnt, his ashes are submerged in several yojanas, several hundred kilometers, so that even the ashes don't come with you and resurrect themselves. So that type of finishing is not happening with the Narendra Modi government, despite earning the name that it is a Hitler in action, fascist government, and all such slangs. I would say this is one of the most benevolent government for the opposition. For the opposition, the biggest surety and insurance is from Narendra Modi.
Eman, when I was in Baghdad, at that time it was Saddam Hussein who was in power. Okay. And his kind of rule was, people were very happy. They had everything. It's very totally different than what media was writing about. People were very happy. And just like you said about Chanakya, what he did was, if there was any adulteration, what he would do is, he would pick up the complete family and destroy them. And he said that they should not exist. Of course, that's going too far. But it's very similar to what you just said now. Uprooting the whole thing and throwing it away. That's the only way.
So I am sorry to say that we lack the ruthlessness that is required of a state. That is what is being projected. Whether you should have it or not is an entirely different thing. But people think that Narendra Modi is some sort of a ruthless state. But I think he has actually allowed all these cockroaches to come out of the woodwork. I would say all these characters, whether it is Khalistani forces, whether it is leftist forces, jihadist forces, all these and they tasted blood in Shaheen Bagh. Please understand, they tasted blood in Shaheen Bagh. Shaheen Bagh was their first victory, and this is the second victory. And I'm sure many of us, in fact, Professor Vaidyanathan, for instance, many of them have been turning that this is all testing ground, and you will see more of this happening, and Parliament will be rendered completely, irrelevant, and we will be going ahead and doing whatever they want only on the streets, and 20,000 people are enough to hold the entire country to ransom. This is what is appalling. So where is the state, and what happened on 26th January, Meena? I'm sorry to say that the state abdicated its responsibility. That is the bottom line.
What is it that they could have done?
See, what they should have done, I'm not the Prime Minister, I'm not the Delhi police.
Whatever idea.
They should not have allowed this to happen. Meena, they should not have allowed this to happen. How? I don't know. But bottom line is, this should not have happened. The ugly scenes are there before my eyes, that somebody comes and hoists a flag in the ramparts of Red Fort. Now, whether he did it in the topmost tier or in the bottommost tier is irrelevant to me. That somebody dared to uproot the national flag and replace it with some other flag, even if it is my flag or your flag, I care two hoots. That's the worst possible signal that could have come about on the Republic Day.
Yeah. Do you think that in some way the government wanted them to make fools of themselves so that people would understand how the character?
Meena, there is no question of a villain being a fool. Villain is a villain.
Yeah.
And only we have different characters of a comedy, a hero, villain, fool, whatever it is. So there is a villain out there, and we have given you 303 seats. We have backed you to the hilt, and we are now asking accountability for my vote. I want to see that there is a bang for the buck. We are given 303 seats. It's not that one or two seats here and there. It's not a weak government. Let us be very clear about it.
Yeah.
It is the strongest government for the last 35 years.
Yeah.
Which has the maximum number of seats in the parliament, maximum number of state governments, the entire intelligentsia, the good number of intelligentsia, professional, everybody is backing you. You have all the support of various countries. Today, the Prime Minister is in a sweet spot. And for what reason is this happening repeatedly? That they can bully the state. What is happening is some 20,000 lumpen elements are bullying the state.
Yeah.
And we don't have a solution to it. And again, I repeat, if the farmers have a genuine problem, it is the duty of the state, the government of the day to assuage their feeling. And I'm again blaming that the government of the day is not dialoguing with the farmers on the twin track basis. All that we are having is in the closed room Vigyan Bhavan. Mr. Tomar and Mr. Piyush Goyal are talking good. But besides that, we require enormous amount of dialogue on twin track, or perhaps even more than that, whatever you may call it. That must be dialogue, and see that the farmers go back. This cannot be there.
Do you think the Supreme Court should be interfering at all?
No, why should Supreme Court interfere? The Supreme Court interfered and allowed the tractor rally on 26th. Supreme Court, please understand, we are abusing the process of law. Yeah. And everywhere we see that whenever there is an administration failure, we want the court to supplant the administrative process. In the process, we are weakening the Supreme Court. Supreme Court should not interfere. This is an administrative issue. This is a policy decision. This is a law passed by the parliament. Now, if a law is not acceptable to you in a democracy, let us sit down and dialogue. Now, I have been one of those who have always believed that GST is not good, and it is corrosive to the Indian economy. I have repeatedly held it. Now, 20,000 people, if we had held that we should not accept GST and storm the parliament, would you have agreed that GST would be scrapped? We agreed that GST was to be brought in, and we respect GST. But at the same time, as a democratic process, you try to influence. In a democracy, nothing happens in a jiffy.
Yeah.
And we have to be patient. We have to be very, very slow in even expressing ourselves. But at the same time, we should allow the process of law to go on. Law is supreme. If this is the attitude that the opponents are displaying, that means they are being backed by all sorts of powers.
That's what I'm asking you next. Who are sending these people here with their voices?
This country was supposed to break up by the 50s or 60s. People expected, and India was supposed to be a basket case, either economically or politically. This would face a complete annihilation and destruction by 15-20 years of its independence. Nobody gave us a chance to remain as a nation. But people don't know that Ramayana starts in UP and climaxes in Tamil Nadu. And there are more number of people called Ramchandran and Ramsamy and Ramabhadran and Ramanathan in Tamil Nadu than in UP. So there is a huge cultural connect between two different, otherwise it would be two different countries.
Yeah.
But I feel more related to Lord Rama than probably somebody in Ayodhya is.
Yeah.
That's what is holding us together, which the Westerners cannot fathom and understand.
Yeah.
But the efforts are going on. The efforts are going on at several places. And the Sikh community with this Khalistanis has been one of our soft underbellies, and we ruthlessly put it down in the early 90s thanks to Narasimha Rao. In fact, it is one of the biggest success stories of Narasimha Rao, which is not sung either by the Congress party or by the BJP. And so is the southern state of Tamil Nadu, wherein the Christian Muslim groups are very keen to dismember the country with some sort of a fault line to be exploited. But we have held on together for a variety of reasons, which is unfathomable to the foreigners. That is the secret. That is the biggest stealth bomber that we have. So now we need to move beyond, identify this, and the so-called celebrities who are tweeting about India, about farmers, forget them. I don't know whether Rahul Gandhi can distinguish between Rabi and Kharif crop. Okay, so I don't take a tweet of a semi-porn star seriously. But I would also say something that behind them there are enormous amount of forces.
Yeah.
And this has always been there, that the Break in India forces have been working overtime. And somehow to see that India is divided somewhere down the line. And this can be the CIA, this can be the Communist Party of China, this can be anybody who doesn't want India to be a political construct the way it is.
But why
so this will go on, and we have to be very conscious about it. We have to necessarily fight it out.
Yeah. Recently, Dr. Swami had tweeted that some BJP MLAs had gone to him and they had asked him for a solution, and he said that in which case the BJP ruled states can follow the rules, the others need it. Is that a solution, MR?
Probably that is a solution, but probably that is not a solution either. I will tell you why. Probably that's a solution because that would give an escape route to the farmers in Punjab. But Punjab, Haryana is a state ruled by the BJP. And technically speaking, if Haryana and Punjab are suspending these rules, virtually you are suspending the act. Because right from, if you begin with Rajasthan, and you take Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Orissa, Bengal, Bihar, which are the major agricultural states, these farmers there are not agitating. So virtually you are suspending the law itself.
Yeah.
So yes, there is definitely a way out in a democracy where the government has to hold the majesty of the law. And the people also must not feel that they are unnecessarily targeted. So a via media has to be fought. And when I say via media, you should walk 50 feet, I should walk 50 feet, and we meet midway.
Yes.
It cannot be that unless you do away with the law, I will not come and discuss. I will not allow the parliament to function. I will not. I will hold a siege of Delhi. This is something that I will not agree.
Yeah. Why do you think Modi ji is, taking a soft stand?
I don't know what is this compulsion. So we should not comment on why the government
Because
of the day has a particular stance.
yeah,
But I would say that I don't want the ugly scenes of what happened on. I am entitled to it as a taxpayer, as a
yeah,
citizen of this country, to say that please don't ensure the repetition of 26th January. And I would call it as a failure of the government. And I want peace and peace and the upholding the majesty of law. That much I'm entitled to do. What is the strategy for doing it? I would leave it to the wisdom of the Home Secretary, National Security Advisor, Home Minister, Prime Minister, and the entire cabinet. Let them decide on what is to be done. I am a guy who goes to the Udupi hotel and asks for a masala dosa. I don't go to the kitchen and sit with the chef and say how to make the masala dosa. All I want is a good masala dosa to eat, and I want peace.
yeah, yeah. Indeed. Another point here in the farmers issue, what we're talking about is why are these a lot of people were suspended in Twitter, and then immediately they were as per the instructions given by the government, then immediately they were all back in Twitter. Why is the Twitter totally uncontrollable? As far as our government is concerned.
See, in a way, we are not clear what is the limit of free speech. We want to be seen as libertarians, but also we want to control free speech. This is happening since the days of Nehru when we amended the Article 91. 19. I'm sorry, 19.
Yeah.
When we amended Article 19, that's the time when we started this issue. We have not yet settled.
Yeah.
Now, to tell you very frankly, we have very little leverage with Twitter, Facebook, and many of these social media giants because most of us are corresponding and dialoguing with all of us only through these platforms.
Yeah.
Unless we have a domestic desi version of Twitter, unless we have a desi version of Facebook, and unless many of us migrate to that platform and give away this platform, I don't think so. The government of India has a choice. It can at best have a persuasive value. It can at best tell Twitter to delete, and Twitter will say, so be it. And in fact, Twitter India has very little presence except that it's a token presence here. And I don't think so legally government of India can do much about it. And Twitter USA is what it will be controlling. And in fact, even when Twitter and Facebook suspended the handle of the former president of America, the American state could do very little. Please understand, that's the monstrosity or the monster, that's the nature of the beast. That's the level to which these tech companies have become too big and very little that the government can do. So my solution is be pragmatic. Government cannot do other than write a letter. It can petition somebody. Usually you petition the government and government doesn't hear to you. So the government now will petition Twitter and Twitter will give a damn because karma works in a way, karma also works in a way. So just like government gives a damn to your petitions, Twitter will also give a damn to the petition of the government. And my view is still we have some sort of a huge network or platform, a social network platform, which is domestically driven, domestically operated, domestically managed with domestic technology. We are going to face this. And I don't see something big coming for the next 5 years.
You're aware of Tutor, MR? Have you signed into Tutor?
No, I have not signed it because I was told that there is some issues over there and the Prime Minister's name was unnecessarily dragged.
But they haven't done anything about it.
Yeah, but they haven't done it. So you see, this is a problem. we want to be seen as a sort of a very hard state.
Yeah.
When we forget Twitter, we don't even have the gall to take on Twitter, and it misuses the name of the Prime Minister. I think something is terribly wrong with our genetic makeup.
Yeah. MR, see, Amrita is saying, I have a
Yeah.
sneaking suspicion that Monsanto has been hard at work behind the scenes. Any comment on this?
Monsanto will also be at play, but this is not only pure economics. This is geopolitics at play. So, if Monsanto were to do it, why should the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau jump into this? Why should several of these players, which you have named today? Many of them I don't know. I'm sorry. All that I know that they have millions of followers, which I read in some Twitter feed. Except that all these guys should be jumping in without some sort of a political backup. I don't think so they would be doing it. So my view is Monsanto could also be jumping in because it has got its own market at play. So that tells me that this is not only economics, this is geopolitics. So Monsanto will also fish in troubled waters, but Monsanto is not the sole villain of the piece.
Yeah. What about Soros?
Soros would have got something to do with Indian market. So Soros is known to destabilize, and right from 92, when he had a run on the British pound and brought British pound to its knees, he has been doing this consistently. And if the government of India doesn't play ball, he may short the rupee to such an extent it will go to 115 bucks per dollar. So he's capable of that. And I don't know. That is why I have been championing that we require an economic intelligence bureau, which will look at several of these issues and try to figure out who you can't use the normal IB. In the sense, I have got a higher respect for all the agencies, but this requires a different capacity to connect various dots between the currency market and the commodity market and things happening in the Delhi-Haryana border. And then try to see whether you can make a sense out of the madness.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Moving on to the SSR case, Imar. Meanwhile, in the SSR case, the Supreme Court has dismissed a public interest litigation seeking an update about the CBI investigations into the mysterious death of Sushant Singh Rajput. The PIL sought a status report into the investigations being conducted by the CBI. The petition also mentioned the inordinate delay as a ground for an update. The Supreme Court bench was of the opinion that the petition can't be entertained and immediately proceeded for dismissal. The grounds for dismissal is that there can't be a time limit set for investigations like these, which may turn out to be a crime investigation. The Supreme Court declined to put pressure on CBI to submit a status report for the benefit of the public. Hence, the petition was dismissed. The Supreme Court has observed in earlier cases that crime investigations may take time and the investigating agency must be allowed sufficient time to complete it. Crime investigations are not time-bound, hence cannot have deadlines. Such a stand may hamper investigations. And the bench which dismissed the petition was presided over by Chief Justice Honorable S.A. Bobde. He proceeded to dismiss it promptly after observing that the petition cannot be entertained. The Supreme Court has upheld an ongoing CBI investigation into the case on August 22, 2020.
I think it's right on part of Supreme Court. When you are given it to CBI, and we all clamored for CBI investigation, and we got the CBI investigation done. Now, we can't go back and say CBI should finish it within 7 days or 20 days or 15 days, whatever we feel. Because investigation is a very painstaking job. It is like picking a needle out of a haystack. It's not so easy. Please understand, in this case, there is no eyewitness in the true sense of the term. And in all these things, I cannot let you know also what are the mechanisms that the CBI actually does. But I can tell you there are several cases CBI has actually filed a charge sheet 3-4 years down the line. Probably the CBI may file a charge sheet 3-4 years down the line. You must be patient. If you trust CBI, you have to be patient. It can also be the game work of somebody else who has filed. The
Yeah.
person who is interested in protecting
Exactly.
somebody.
Yeah. Exactly.
So we have to also look at the bona fides.
Yeah.
My view, CBI is a very competent body. It has its own flaws. It has derailed itself several times over. But yet, without political interference, and I have been maintaining it repeatedly, if CBI is allowed to do a professional job, which I am sure they are competent, truth will be out. Please wait. Please believe CBI. If it is not happening, then let us think what should be the alternative, and then at that point in time, we will all pitch it. At this point in time, I will place my absolute trust, and I say this with utmost sincerity. Allow the CBI to do its job. Don't allow CBI to divert its attention and focus on investigation to something else. Let CBI have 100% of its concentration only on the investigation. It should put in the blinkered eye view only on the investigation. It must collect all evidences. Please understand, the day on which CBI completes its investigation, files a charge sheet, if it comes to a pass, from then on, the Defense's Council will take over and they can fight till Supreme Court for the next 20 years. So CBI has to ensure that its charge sheet sustains for the next 20 years. It's a huge ask for the investigator. So at this point in time, I believe that we should not pester or disturb the CBI, even if it takes a couple of years. Please let us keep our mouth shut, watch it with all patience. At some point in time, if we feel that CBI is not doing its job, at that time, many of us will definitely try to do what is to be done, look into what is to be done.
Yeah. Sharad Vaishnav says a temporary CBI director took place today and the permanent director will be assigned soon. Any impact on SSR case?
See, it should not. CBI is an institution. The IO is the investigating team, and the IO is totally different from the director. Director doesn't do the investigation. Director only gives policy and broad guidelines to the investigators, and investigators do their job, and they will be doing their job at their level. So don't get disturbed and don't get perturbed with all these things. Somewhere some directors will come, they will have to superannuate and they will retire and they will go back. There will be new set of people. The CBI doesn't work on individuals and personalities. It's a system-driven organization, and don't worry about these things. This will happen in any organization, and the organization is much bigger than any individual.
The reasons, MR, is that so there's a lot of PR, related stuff that's coming into social media, where they try to concoct stories about SSR being a drug addict, another someone saying that he's alive and he's missing. So there are a lot of stories being woven around this, and that makes the SSRians quite worried. And normally, I mean, they're not as educated on these things as people like you are. So that's why they have this tension and worry, and which you are now clarifying. So I think it's very important for them to be more patient. And
even if SSR were a drug addict, that doesn't give a right to anybody to murder him.
Yeah.
And even if he were into something nefarious, I'm for the sake of argument, I'm conceding at this point in time.
Yeah.
That let us hold that SSR were into something nefarious, he was a drug addict, he was what he was. That doesn't give anybody any right to go and knock him off.
Yeah.
So let us not get into all these things. Let us not unnecessarily get entangled in all these things. Let us leave it as it is. Let the probe go on. Let the charge sheet, if there is going to be a case for it, be filed. Otherwise, CBI will file a closure report.
Yeah.
If it is genuinely a case of a suicide, they will come to a conclusion it is a suicide and file a closure report. Because once the FIR is lodged, they have to bring it about with some sort of a closure. And that closure report will give us a clear idea whether it was suicide. If it is a charge sheet, if I had murdered him, they will proceed against me and they will take action. So let us wait. And let us not get too perturbed with what somebody is posting on the Twitter or in
Yeah.
something else.
Okay. MR, with regards to the budget this year, are you happy with what has been, offered?
See, I am not somebody who is very happy with any budgets because I've been a critic of several of the budgets, and there is a long story behind it, and much of it is never discussed. But be that as it may, given the circumstances, given what is the available resources with the finance minister, I think the broad policy guidelines that she has adopted, namely to privatize, monetize, and disinvest. I think if you take that as the central pillar of the budget making process, I think the finance minister has done a reasonably good job. And I wish this was done in the year 2014 itself. Unfortunately, the government deterred until they came to a point, thanks to COVID, that the cupboard was completely empty. They had to scratch at the bottom of the barrel, and then they started doing this. This is something, if you hold this point alone, I would give 8 out of 10 to this budget. But there are several aspects on which the finance minister seems to have done an ornamental exercise. For example, when she told about the roads in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Bengal, and Assam, these are all not budgets or allocations in the year 21-22.
Yeah.
These are all things that are going to happen in 22, 23, 24. How much of it is going to be spent in this year? How much roads are going to come here? For instance, in Kerala, I think she said something around 65,000 kilometers, if I remember right. 65,000 kilometers of road cannot happen in Kerala alone this year. It can happen probably over a period of 5, 7, 8 years. I try to think if 65,000 kilometers of roads are laid over Kerala in 1 year, Kerala would be submerged by roads. So it's not something that's going to happen. But this is what, you try to create expectations. You try to boost up, you want to ornament the whole thing. And you don't know what is really happening. I would give you a classical example. They have talked about this textile parks. Said 7 textile parks will be created. Go back into the last 30 years. They have created textile parks for gems and jewelries. They have created they have created parks for leather. They have created parks for food processing. They have created this cold storage chains. All these are announced without realizing that needs to be funded. If the government is going to do, you have to put in funds. If the government is going to announce that a policy, you just leave it to the policy. Now, why do you want to say that if Meena is going to bring about a huge cold storage chain in, say, Karnataka, why should I announce it in the budget? But these are all things that the finance ministers don't even realize, that people are seriously watching it, and it puts enormous difficulty in defending the budget. These are things that they should leave it and say, we are not into any ornamentation. We just give you numbers. We tell you key figures or key policy things that we are going to bring it. Budget should not be read for more than 15 minutes. If anything more than 15 minutes, you try to pack up something which is for the budget of 24, 25, and then try to bring it in and try to show as if you are doing everything this year. It's not going to happen.
Neon Gladiator is asking you your opinion on what government should do to increase demand side of economy.
Okay. This was brilliantly summed up by somebody who sent me a message that, reforms for the upper class, subsidies for the lower class, and only debates for the middle class, and no rebates. So what the government believes is that they are laying roads.
Yeah.
They are privatizing airports. They are monetizing assets. They are selling all these things. And when these will be picked up by private entrepreneurs, you will get jobs. You will get salaries, and out of the salaries you will start picking up demand. They are not putting money in your hands directly. They believe that economy has to be built, and by a larger cake in the economy, you will get your share, and then you start spending, and then the demand will increase.
Yeah.
Now, markets have more or less agreed on this theory, the stock markets. Most of the economists are also of the view that this is a good way to do things. But finally, the question is on your implementation. Now, I'll give you a classical example. Last year, 1st February 2020, the finance minister, at the time there was no COVID, finance minister made a point that she will bring about an IPO in LIC. And all of us were hopeful by September, October, you will get an IPO into LIC. But even till date, after 365 days, we don't see LIC IPO. Now, this is not the fault of the budget. This is the fault of the implementation of the budget. We need to distinguish between the two. And this one joint secretary sitting somewhere who doesn't like this IPO of LIC may write a simple note with a green pen and say that please discuss these matters as this has got CAG implications or CVC implications, or we may have to take an opinion from law ministry. This means he derails the process for 6 months. So unless the whole thing is again put and then they say that all these points are cleared and this doesn't happen. Government is becoming government officers only want to take decisions to ensure that they don't get visited by CBI, CVC and the courts. So this is what is creating our problem. Unless we solve this, all our ideas that we can, in fact, all of you here, the viewers here, are brilliant people who can come out with ideas, and some of this can be cherry picked and we can create an alternative budget also. But tell me, who is to bell the cat? Who is to implement it? It's only the Babudam. And I'm sorry to say the government doesn't have the bandwidth. That is why after 7 years, government realizes it cannot run BSNL, it cannot run railways, it cannot run airports, it cannot run airways. So it is ready to sell everything. After trying for almost a decade, at least this 7 years that we have been trying to manage the economy, we are not able to run the economy.
Shailaja is asking, education sector is suffering, sir. No allocation of funds. Why?
Now, Shailaja, this budget is of the size of 34,83,000 crores. Now, I would tell you that if the entire budget is spent on education, no defense, nothing, only on one sector, build schools, build colleges, put all the money in education sector, can you guarantee by 3rd February 22, will our education sector be better? The answer is no. Why? And the solution for it is not put money alone. And this is what I have been championing for almost a decade now. I have been writing about this. I have been telling this, that ask government servants to sell their children to government schools. That will transform education in the government school. Once the education in the government sector goes up, the private sector space where IAS Babudam sends their children to the best of schools in the cities will be forced to send their children to the government schools, and automatically private sector demand for schools will come down. You and I can send our children either to government school or to private school, and the quality of private schools will come up, public schools will come up, private school will become cheaper. And that is what the road to better education. At that time, you won't have the problem of educating whether in English or in Telugu or in Tamil or in whatever language. You will like to see the quality of education improving in government schools. Toilet in all schools. You will have water in all toilets. Many girls don't go to schools beyond 8th standard because the toilets are very poor. So these are not things that are coming in because funds are lacking. This is because there is no accountability. And only way we can bring in accountability is to ensure government servants send their children to government school. And this doesn't require a single naya paisa. It requires only policy intervention.
Neon
Yeah.
Gladiator says, without land and labor reforms and reduced tax rates, how is Atmanirbhar Bharat possible? Will it be another flop like Make in India?
Atmanirbhar is on a philosophical level a brilliant idea. But if you look at many of the announcements of Narendra Modi, beginning from Make in India, Skill India, Digital India, then you had the smart cities, low cost housing, Namami Gange, coastal shipping, riverways shipping, all these things have somehow been announced. They have contrived to announce these things without a backup plan. Now, as far as reduced tax rates is concerned, I think the manufacturing rates in India are one of the lowest tax rates as far as manufacturing is concerned. But even then, share of manufacturing has fallen by 2 percentage point to the GDP in the last 3 years. It is not merely reduction of tax rates that will matter. It is your ease of doing business, which somehow the government, this government is very clear, it has brought it down. No further things need to be done. But I have believed that there is a new index that is to be brought in, which is called IDBI, impossibility of doing business in India, which suggests that it is not only the central government alone that is to be blamed. Here there is a state government. For instance, how many of you know how long does it take to get a high tension electricity connection, and all electricity is state subject? Can you know how long does it take in each of these states? How much bribe you have to pay to get a building approval for a factory? How many of you know that if these type of things take so much of money, cash to be generated? These are things this cannot be cured at the central level. There is a state level also, and these are things that probably the finance minister or the prime minister cannot address. And unless these are addressed, India will never become a manufacturing powerhouse. And unless we are a manufacturing powerhouse, Atmanirbhar policy or whatever it is being called has no direct meaning. Unless the proof of the pudding will be in its eating, and unless we increase from 15% share of manufacturing to the GDP to 25%, we cannot call ourselves a great manufacturing hub by 2030. That's 10 years from now. I think Atmanirbhar will not take off. And for that, states have to play a very important role.
Yeah. You were talking about removal of GST. Can you talk about that, Emma?
Yeah, see, GST cannot be removed. I never said GST can be removed. I had objections to the GST. And GST, I still maintain, and many of my chartered accountant friends tell me it's one of the most corrosive taxes. It is, Mina, please understand what Chanakya said about taxes. Taxes must be collected like a bee collects honey from a flower. Okay. Now, what is GST? How does it collect tax? GST is collected like breaking your wisdom tooth and plucking it out without anesthesia. So, this is how GST works. So, GST, unfortunately, has become a huge, complicated exercise. And somewhere down the line, we have this huge habit of putting enormous pressure on this input tax credit. And government somehow believes that it shouldn't give input tax credit. And they are contriving every possible ways of stopping input tax credit. And those of you who are entrepreneurs would know. And the plethora of forms and other things. I had warned in 2016. If my memory serves me right, 2015 or 2016, I had coined the term GST will end up as tax jihadism. It is not tax terrorism, it's tax jihadism. And that's what it is today. Though the government is getting 120,000 crores of revenue, and people are gaga about it, people are sanguine about it, people say that this is the proof that the economy is doing well. I would say that the manner of collection, it is not the numbers alone, the manner of collection is something that we need to be worried about. And unless government eases this GST issue, a day would come, and you won't believe me, now there are something around, I'm told that 70-80 associations of taxpayers associations and chartered accountants have gone on a protest on filing GST forms in Western Maharashtra and Gujarat. And these are all people who are the core supporters of the government, of the BJP party. And if these people are going to protest, and if the government doesn't heed to these protests, I think something is terribly wrong with the government.
Nitin is asking, but sir, if everyone can buy goods from Made in India company, then Atmanirbhar policy may work.
Yeah, obviously Atmanirbhar policy may work, but you must understand your iPhones where you are probably tweeting have just now been started to be made in India, but there are several manufacturing issues. In fact, today I got a nice shirt from a online platform. I was surprised to find that it was made in Bangladesh and sold in India, and the cost of that garment was 300 rupees. I was expecting for 300 rupees, if somebody is going to give me a pullover shirt, I just tried it for the curiosity of it. See, Meena, we are supposed to be the people who are clothing the world some 300, 400 years back. We had the Dhaka muslin, we had great advancement in cotton and textile industry. And today, it is very sad to see that we are losing to Bangladesh. And nobody is bothered about it. Nobody's, if you lose a one-day cricket match or a T20 to Bangladesh, the whole nation will be in mourning. And I have been thinking several times over, how is it that a garment from Bangladesh finds its way to a poor man in India at a very affordable price, at a very good quality? It is not 300 rupees kerchief. Please understand, it's worth every. It's 300 rupees, it's worth every penny. That means something terribly is wrong with manufacturing in this country. We are not competitive. Please understand, you can talk about emotions for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Economics drives itself. And when you have a shirt of the same quality at 600 rupees hosted by some website and 300 rupees by some website, will you choose 600 over 300? Somebody may choose 600 over 300 for some time. I'm not saying that people won't do, and people who do are correct. They are placing their heart is at the right place. But people who buy at 300, their brain is at a good place. So this you cannot stop in a globalized world. We have 0% duty for imports from Bangladesh. So whether it is made in Bangladesh or whether it is sold in India, it makes no difference to the price because we have a free trade agreement with Bangladesh. You may say that the cost of production is low. You may say whatever it is. We are also having huge number of people. We have jobless people, but our textile industry is in a doldrum. We are not able to match the efficiency of Bangladesh in simple garments.
So what is the textile minister doing?
I don't know. If I am seeing that piece of buying that shirt, and only when I opened it, I found it was made in Bangladesh. Since I realized it has. And on the other hand, we see the Prime Minister, talking so big about Atmanirbhar policy, and on the other hand, we are beaten hollow and square in simple garments like shirts and pullovers. It is not some. If I lose to America in say making some supercomputers, it's a different ball game. But if we are losing in simple garments, something is terribly wrong.
Okay. Moving on to another point, Emma. After the explosive gold scam, where everyone from laymen to diplomats and politicians, are involved, now JP Nadda landed in Kerala to shape the strategy for assembly polls, and says BJP will get support. His aim is to shape his party strategy for the state assembly polls due in April-May this year. Addressing a briefing in Trivandrum, Nadda mentioned that he wants to understand the organizational activities of BJP in Kerala and meet the NDA allies individually and collectively. Hailing BJP as the third principal role in Kerala based on the recent local body election results, He contended that the people have widely appreciated the good work done by PM Narendra Modi. He predicted that BJP shall get the support of people in the upcoming assembly election. On the other hand, he lambasted the performance of Pinarayi Vijayan-led government, alleging its involvement in a number of scams. For instance, the former Union Health Minister opined that Vijayan had lost his credibility after the purported involvement of the Kerala CMO in the gold smuggling case. In the gold scam, the involvement of the Chief Minister's office has really embarrassed the self-respecting Malayalis, not only in Kerala, but the world over. It has given a very bad name, and Pinarayi has lost his credibility also. The investigation which is going on is going to throw further light, and many ministers are going to come to light in this, he added. What do you foresee with regards to Kerala's future scenario, Emma?
See, Kerala is a very peculiar state, with every Keralite having three opinions, political opinions. So it's a pollster's nightmare, it's a psephologist's nightmare, it's a political analyst's nightmare.
Yeah.
Be that as it may, I think, forget what Pinarayi Vijayan is or is not. I think it's time that the BJP government, if Pinarayi Vijayan is involved in the gold smuggling scam, or many of his ministers are, as is being spoken of in whispered tones by many of the BJP leaders down south, especially in Kerala. I don't know, they only want to keep Pinarayi Vijayan on the tenterhooks. They have to take a leap of faith, and they have to uphold the majesty of law and see that the matters are taken to a logical conclusion, which probably includes and is not limited to the arrest of Pinarayi Vijayan under the PMLA and the gold smuggling issue.
Yeah.
But I don't know, given the track record of the BJP, which only wants to keep the issues boiling, which has been their standard operating practice, I don't think so that this matter also will be taken to a logical conclusion. There will be some action here and some action there, and there will be some minions will be arrested, like that lady, Supna Suresh and others. But nothing more, except that it will generate some heat, but no light during the political process in the run-up to the elections. After elections, along with the first shower of the monsoon, I think this will be washed away into the Arabian Sea.
And Shashi Tharoor is hoping that he'll become the Chief Minister of Kerala.
I won't say anything, because you don't know, in this country, anybody has become a Chief Minister and somebody has become the Prime Minister. So we have seen all those things in the 90s. So let us not speculate on this. I would only wish him all luck, and wish all Keralites greater luck if he becomes Chief Minister, especially women.
MR, another point, Dr. Swamy filed a PIL in Supreme Court on the functioning of RBI. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
See, for almost 15-20 years, we have been peppered with scam after scam in the financial sector, notably our banks. Several people are alleged to have defrauded banks and made good their escape. Some have even settled abroad, some have gone abroad, some have changed their passports, citizenship, and they are happily abroad. So there are several stories into it. Some are languishing here. Some bankers have been arrested. But RBI, which is supposed to be the regulator, the watchdog of the entire financial sector, has been almost completely clean about the whole thing. Nobody has even whispered about the role of RBI, though several of us who watch and understand banking very closely have been intrigued as to why and how the RBI failed to spot these anomalies in the banking sector. I'll give you a simple example. Maybe many of you know it, maybe many of you may not know it. That Malaya pledged the Kingfisher logo, which is the Kingfisher bird, for around 800 crores as a collateral to the banks. Now, it may be news to you, it may be not news to you, you may have read it. But sitting on the board of those banks, sitting on the committees on those banks which actually lent money to Malaya based on this particular arrangement, RBI cannot say that we came to know after reading it in Economic Times or in Financial Express some weeks later or months later. It had real-time information of what is happening in the banks. In fact, we did an analysis in my office. We found that more than 240 returns are filed by the banks with the RBI. These include some on daily basis, some on weekly basis, some on fortnightly basis, some on monthly basis, some on quarterly basis, half-yearly basis, annual basis, some on actual as and when it arises. So there are different layers of communicating between bank and RBI. So in all these scams, RBI was very much aware about these happenings and it must be knowing it. But strangely, none of these matters RBI has ever been investigated, the role of officers of RBI. And in some of the cases, like ILFS, like several of these cases, there have been whistleblowers who have written to the then RBI governor. The then RBI governor, who is called rockstar economist. And people have told him that, look, there is something fishy out here. And the man was going gaga about something else. And he comes and writes a book about transparency in RBI and transparency, and we are also happy about it. So something is rotten with the Prince of Denmark. We need to have a thorough investigation unless RBI's functioning is actually settled. And there are enormous amount of checks and balances. RBI is on the board, RBI is on the committee, RBI does appoint auditors, RBI does its own inspection, RBI gets returns, RBI can issue direction, RBI can have a veto on the appointment of several people on the board. And it has got so much of mechanisms and it exercises them, but nothing seems to improve at the ground level. So there seems to be some active connivance. That's what Dr. Swamy suggests in his petition. There seems to be an active connivance, demonstrable active connivance in the functioning or non-functioning of RBI. The watchdog is refusing to bark. The watchdog simply sleeps. And that's what Dr. Swamy is alleging and asking CBI to investigate the functioning of RBI. That's the long and short of it.
Okay. Viewers, as we all know, MRB is writing a book entitled Retaining Balance, the Eternal. In the concluding chapter, you talk about Ram Rajya, without Ram. Why do you say that, Ivar?
See, Ram Rajya is a Rajya without Ram. That is what I have titled my 10th chapter. It has taken me around 2 months to title that chapter. The whole idea of the book is that the government must place a residuary role in our life. We can't have a nanny state. It cannot come and tell us what to do, how to do, when to do, where to do, and so on and so forth. Ram Rajya is supposed to be the ideal. The Western idea of an ideal state is utopia.
Yeah.
Our idea of ideal state would be Ram Rajya.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in Ram Rajya, Rajya may be there.
Yeah.
But Ram should not be seen, heard, visible. He should do very little. He may have to do something like defense, maintenance of law order, judiciary, probably take care of irrigation, health. But he need not run airline and Air India. He need not run BSNL. He need not run Doordarshan when there are 850 channels in all languages put together in this country.
Yeah.
He need not be participating in running hotels when there are enormous number of hotels. This could all have been possible in the year 1950s when Nehruvianism was acceptable in 50s because at that time there was no ITC. There was no Oberoi. Probably a few of them, Madanul Taj. But today, we have enormous number of players in several sectors. So the government needs to come back and decide that it will not do these things. That is what this budget probably alludes to in parts, though it may not have expressed itself in the way I am. Probably I have the liberty of explaining Ram Rajya in a different way than a finance minister on the floor of the house. So probably by selling of assets, privatizing, government says we will not enter this business thicket, and that's the right way to do it. Rajya is where Ram is not seen. Ram must be the guiding force. He must be the moral caution for all citizenry. He must guide you. He must not be there as a policeman to dictate what you should do and what you shouldn't. So that's the overarching theme of the book, is that we should emphasize ourselves on the duty. That's the Indian concept. The Indian concept is about Jaya, which is the internal victory. Vijaya is obviously the victory over others, but Jaya is about conquering self. Whereas the Christian contrast is that you always require an external agent to provide you the necessary salvation. So the Christ is always a redeemer. You don't require the external agent, the government or the market or the Christ. As far as we are concerned, we will say that we can do our things better, and we will know how to manage ourselves better. And it is this individual genius that must be allowed to flower. And for that, we don't require Ram, we require only Rajya.
Really good. Also, Emma, we'll take one last question before we wind up. It's from Mansi Bhaktwani. Any message for CA aspirants?
It's the toughest course. Don't take it unless you are very clear that you are ready to do hard work. If you don't have eye for detail, you don't have the painstaking efforts, don't do this course. It is not a course for intelligent, it is the course for the hardworking. Please understand, CA, if I can pass CA, and I'm not saying this as a rhetoric, if I can pass CA, anybody can pass CA. Provided you do 16 hours of hard work. And for that, let me give you a tip. Take 10 terms of question paper. If you are writing May 21, take 20, 19, 18, 17, and 16 question papers into 2 terms, May and November. So you have 20 sets of 5 into 2, 10 sets of question papers. Answer them as if you are answering in examination. Do a mock test of the last 10 terms. Take that answer sheet to somebody who is a CA. Don't go to your friend, take it to a CA. Ask him to correct it. And when he corrects, and if you are able to get 40 marks, I assure you, you will pass. You will get 50, 55 in the actual scenario. But if you are not able to write 10 papers, 10 terms of answer, so it's 7 or 8 papers, so 80 papers, you have to write 80 into 3, 240 hours. So 240 hours in examination condition, if you are not able to put it, don't do CA. As simple as that.
Emma, just one more question. A lady asks, Subhasini is asking, can you ask about Arnab's case? Anything you could tell us about that?
See, it is a complicated case. I don't see any merit at this point in time. All the chats, even if assuming it is true, only is banter at best. This don't actually prove any criminality. But let the police do its job. The same thing that I say in terms of that when investigating agencies, even if they are motivated, even if they are sponsored, even if they are politically driven, let them do their job. And let them come and say that Arnab is guilty of this section and this law. At that point in time, I'm sure Arnab is capable of defending himself. I have full faith in him. I have great respect for him as a journalist, as a professional. In his integrity and his approach, I have no doubts about it. And if there is an allegation, I'm sure he will be able to handle it. And should he want experts' help, and if he wants my help, I'm always there to stand by him and help him. So don't be worried about these things. These are all things in life all of us have to face. All of us face this, and it is in a way good thing that Arnab is facing, because it will, if he comes out of it, it will be a booster thing for his career, and he will be virtually hitting the space. He will rise in everybody's esteem. So this is an Agni Pariksha that is happening. If it can happen to Masita, it can happen to Arnab also. Let them go through this process. I'm sure they will come out unscathed.
Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you for taking the questions. And we wish you all the best with your book. And please join us for another session later on. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Good night. Good night.
Bye.